Welcome to the show, caller, and I can't begin to pronounce that name. Hello.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
How can we help you, sir?
Okay, I just wanted to know why your own moral intuitions are important to you. I mean, every person here has said that, Craig ignores our own moral compasses. However, at the same time, you guys seem to reject belief in the existence of God from intuitions alone. So how are you guys not contradicting yourselves when
No,
you
I
accept
don't. I
intuition
don't.
from
Can I
morality?
can I address that one?
No, wait. I don't.
Ah,
I don't reject the existence of God on intuition. I reject it on the basis of a lack of evidence. Aaron.
okay, I reject
That's not
belief in
actually what I
God.
was saying.
Okay, I don't just base my disbelief in God on a lack of evidence. I also base it on the presence of evidence to the contrary, that his strongest and loudest proponents invariably are the least credible people imaginable, and they always contradict themselves. And then when you get a whole collection of them, they contradict each other. So no one can agree on anything, and the only thing we can verify for sure is that we have two different kinds of arguments. Those which can neither be tested, they can't be tested, they're unsupported also, but they can't be tested. So even though it's ridiculous, you can't prove that it's wrong, it's not worth considering, but you still can't disprove it because of some logical unfalsifiability. That's the one category. The ridiculous nonsense no one can test. The other category is the things you can test, which invariably have always been proven wrong. So every argument they ever present is wrong, or it's unsupported and can't be tested at all. That's why I disregard beliefs in God. It is irrational in the extreme. It is unsupported nonsense beneath serious consideration. As far as a moral compass, that was established by our evolution as a societal animal. This is why, by and large, and not consistently throughout every member of our species, we hold to certain degrees, certain parameters of what we consider acceptable. And these are not rigidly defined. We vary from them all the time, as we came up earlier in this conversation. So I can't see that we are contradicting ourselves. I see those proposing their biblical morality as wholly contradicting themselves. But no, I'm not.
Well, I think the caller thinks he may have been misunderstood or misspoke. I apologise if that is the case. Give us your clarification. What point did we misinterpret?
Well, what I was saying was that that you reject. I probably said this wrong. That you reject deriving the belief in the existence of God from intuition. So, like you reject using intuition to prove the existence of things, and yet you would accept morality based upon intuition.
Yes, I don't. I see where you're coming from now, but I don't see there's any inconsistency with that. Thunder.
First of all, do you actually, are you a theist? Just curious.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And do you subscribe to William Lane Craig's argument that the existence of morality in some way leads to you understanding that there is God?
I'm not 100% sure if morality is objective, but if it is objective, then yes, I would agree with that argument.
Okay. Do you understand that morality comes from within the brain? Yes. Without the brain, there is no morality. It is an output of the brain.
Well, as I understand it, that would be totally in contradiction to what Craig is saying, correct?
Hang on, I don't get that. Craig thinks that morality doesn't come from the brain.
Yeah, he thinks that morality comes from God. That's divine command theory, right?
I don't think we should make an issue of the caller's beliefs. I think it's enough whether I don't think whether he's a theist or atheist is really relevant. I mean, he's just positing what do we think about Craig's stance on this certain issue, and I think we should deal with that exclusively rather than...
Okay,
Hey,
so...
I would like to...
I mean, we finally...
One at a time!
Okay, I wanted to follow what concordance... Hold on.
No, Thunder finished. Aaron, Thunder hadn't finished. One at a time, though, please.
The brain is essentially all created from essentially the same genome. And so you expect various generic behavioral properties to come from that. Some of those are essentially hardwired. Those are the absolute moralities that Craig is actually speaking to. But in reality, those are just a consequence of the evolution, the response of the genome to an environmental landscape.
I just think that wouldn't that make if morality is based upon our genes, wouldn't that make it sort of like, why should we follow it? In other words,
Well, why should you breathe oxygen? That's in the genome as well.
Okay, I see this is going nowhere. I'm sorry.
No, wait, I don't think it's I don't think it's going nowhere. I think that, okay, if a code exists, okay, what I think Craig and to a certain extent the caller is saying is that God not only lays down the rules, but he provides an engine of motivation based on a system of reward and punishment that's built into the rule set itself. For example, if you compare the Levitical law to the Buddhist Eightfold Path, for example, the Bible will say, do this or you're a dead man. Now, that lays down not just the principle, the value being demonstrated, but also the motivation for living in accordance with this value, in that you'll be punished either in this life, the next, or both. The Eightfold Path will say, think the correct thoughts, say the correct words, and things depending on which translation. So you see, it lays down a value of sorts, but it doesn't answer the question. Oh yeah, what if I don't? What happens then? And I think that's a lot of the appeal of religious systems as a whole, is because there's so many different questions that if you don't ask any follow-up questions, they're resolved all in one fell swoop. You understand? Because what we can lay down a value that says, okay, jumping up and down on your left foot is wrong. We still haven't resolved what are we going to do about it? How wrong is it relative to other things, and so forth and so on. The religious precept set has this package deal that comes with, it says, okay, well, if you jump up and down on your left foot, we'll cut it off. But we are still left with, how do we motivate people to obey these principles, and what are we going to do if they don't?
Well, in a way, we do have a system for dealing with those that don't obey society's norms, and that's a legal system and a jail system. So we do kind of do that. But I'm just curious, going back to the caller. I mean, the issue of morality, I presume that you're not suggesting that morality is evidenced in the Bible. It's rather that it's imbued in us by God. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I would agree with that to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, you'd accept that the Bible itself is not evidence of a particularly attractive moral code.
No, not at all.
So we can forget about that. So we're dealing with, basically, I suppose you've got, Puppy Turtle mentioned this in the, was it somewhere Romans 2 where he talks about God having written morality into all of our hearts?
That is correct.
Yeah.
But that's essentially indistinguishable. I mean, this is the real problem.
I was coming to take over Thunder.
Okay, no, you finish. It's your thought.
No, you carry on. You know where I was going with this.
Yeah,
he can carry on. I can't carry on. He can. Okay, I got
you said nowhere and be petulant, Aaron. We'll come to you in a second. Thunder first.
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially ascribing a supernatural phenomenon or a supernatural attribution to a property that can be explained perfectly well by a naturalistic phenomenon, which is basically the response of the gene pool to the environment.
I mean, do you accept this, caller, that if you have an understanding and accept evolution, there is a very, very sound basis for the explanation of moral standards through the process of evolution?
Yes, I agree with that. The only thing is that it makes it kind of subjective, and also it makes it so. I mean,
you say? I'm sorry to interrupt. You say that as if it being subjective is in some way bad or wrong. Why?
Well, I mean, why should it be? Why should we care what your own subjective opinion is? I mean, why should Craig's opinion be any more wrong than your opinion.
Well, no, you're mixing up various issues here. I'm sorry.
I could probably clarify this point.
For example, okay, Aaron, you
Okay. Most of those who hold to there's many reasons that people are atheist, and most of the atheists probably would not be involved in any sort of active discussion like we're having. Most atheists, I'm sure, have no interest in the subject of religion or politics or any of this at all. They just want to go about their lives, and so the majority of them probably don't fit in this category. But for those of us who are activists in this area, okay, we actually do care about intellectual honesty and truth and accuracy, and that it matters what the truth really is and how accurate things are. And we actually do have judgments of morality with regard to the way laws are imposed on us and what we feel that is our moral obligation to do something about that. We actually have a care and compassion for truth, and it is our love of truth that has caused us to reject religion because it is not true.
Oh,
this
can I
can be
just extend
demonstrated.
that? Can I extend that? It's not just a
Yes.
concern and love of truth. It's a concern and compassion. There's no one here that does not have compassion and empathy for their fellow man. That we do have an enormous compassion for the suffering of people. We care when religion is abused in the way it is to discriminate against the likes of homosexuals in America and gay marriage, and when it's used in Islamic countries to suppress women and the like. These are issues of some importance, and the reason that we talk about it is not just, as Aaron says, in relation to the truth of scientific evidence. It's also a compassion for our fellow man. That's the extension that I wanted to put onto Aaron's argument.
Can I throw in?
Please.
I think the original question was, if we distrust intuition in terms of proof for the evidence of God, and yet we can trust our intuition to tell us what is sort of right and wrong, or the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do, those are two very different things. Right and wrong are based partly on what the consequences of our actions are, and that's something that we can have empirical knowledge of, and we may not even always have a fully objective analysis of why we do things, pros and cons, what exactly is going to be the final outcome. But intuitively, we know when we're hurting someone or not hurting someone, and that knowledge changes over time. Whereas scriptural knowledge, which is, fixed in stone, doesn't change over time. So when I find a conflict between what I feel I know to be right, which is a not an objective experience, but it is based on an empirical experience in the world, then I do what I think is best. And it may sometimes come out to do more harm than good based on some arbitrary scale. But when we're talking about using intuition to know whether or not there is a key under a stone or a treasure inside a box, there's no way for my empirical knowledge to inform my intuition. I think that was the question you were originally asking, is how can we use intuition for morality, but not for evidence of God? Is that fair? Ouchie?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I think that...
I would like to add one little thing. I mean, there's a sort of hierarchy of needs here. Just looked from the point of view of sort of homeostatic beings, is there are things that immediately needed, like the need to breathe, the need to breathe, the need to drink, the need to eat. This sort of thing is governed by what we would call instinct. Then you go on to a range of social behaviors that are governed by what we would call emotions. And it's only once that's the lion's share of what governs the behavior of humans. It's only this little slither on the end, which is the cognitive process, which is ironically what revolutionized the species. That now actually gives you the ability to understand all of the other tiers of your behavior. And I think that's where you come into this conflict over is morality divine or not. And I think when you actually look at it, it's fairly clear that the reason that you have this problem with morality is some of it is essentially instinctive, and some of it is plastic and contingent on the society.
Okay, well, I don't think we're ever going to totally agree on this, but I appreciate your insights on this anyway.
Well, before you go, there's one thing I would like to say, and I think also Almighty also wanted to say something on it. I think that one point that we haven't really addressed but I think is relevant, is this. When I hear the argument that's advanced that, oh, well, if you're an atheist, you've got no morals, and I know that's not quite what you're arguing. You know, you can go and do whatever you like and rape and murder and whatever. I think that it's missing the point that, in my view, atheists have a much greater personal responsibility about their behavior than the religious do. And I say this for this reason. We do not have the cop-out option that the religious have. We know that we've got to stand and be judged by our actions. We don't have the option to kneel down and pray to an entity, whether it exists or not, who knows, and say, I'm sorry, and know that by saying that, we will be forgiven. We don't have that.
The real source of frustration we have with William Lane Craig's treatment of the objective versus subject morality systems is not just that he disagrees or that we are, in order to engage with him and people who parrot his arguments, it's not just that we have to posit things that we don't believe in and we find even absurd. It's that he refuses flatly to posit, even for the sake of argument, his opponent's position. Now, whether he's just being stubborn and it's just another one of his many underhanded tactics, or whether it's just a basic failure of critical thinking, he doesn't even recognize that a subjective morality system is a morality system. He says if you have a morality system, it means that some part of you believes in God. That is at the core of our irritation. You understand? And it's not even a matter of his declaring victory in the middle of an argument either. It's just the frustration you feel when you're trying to explain something that you find simple to someone else and they just don't get it. You know, if I go into an ice cream parlor, and so does William Lane Craig, and I order strawberry because I'm in the mood for strawberry, and he orders chocolate because he has been commanded by God to do so, okay? We both have our decisions. The fact that my criteria are subjective to reach something that ultimately is only ever going to be subjective, that doesn't change the fact that I had my reasons. You understand? But he refuses to say that. He says, well, on the day that you order chocolate, you are doing so because God is telling you in your heart to order chocolate. And on the days that you don't, it's because you're disobeying him. He refuses to escape even for a moment from his deeply entrenched mindset and try to understand his opponent's position.
We're going to go back to the caller who, and if people think that I'm shutting him off and getting rid of him, it's not the case. He's actually just messaged me and said that he's got to go in any event. But caller, last word, and then I think we'll bring things to a conclusion.
Well, just to say this, personally, I've never really been a big fan of William Lane Craig, so...
Well, that's no bad thing. All right, then. Well, thank you very much indeed for your call. A few closing comments from me before I go to the panel. Just 1 second. Can I just remind people of two things? There are other shows similar to this, one of which we mentioned already, the Gin and Tonic Show, which is on alternate Sundays. Well worth watching. And the other one is the Lincoln's Beard Show. Again, it's a similar format, but the content is somewhat different. They tend to deal with issues of politics and current affairs. So if you're interested in that, that is on alternate Sundays as well, but I think at a slightly different time, so they don't overlap. I'm also curious if we can have any feedback, and unfortunately I can't actually see Block TV at the moment, but if you post a comment, I'm sure people in the panel will tell me. We're using a new software to actually stream the show. Just quick comments, if you could, on whether the quality so far as video and audio is better, worse, or whatever. Whilst you're doing that, let's go around the panel. Last words from people, thoughts, whatever.
Okay, let me jump in first. And that's that even if you do posit that, God is the morality for humans, I mean, it is still essentially just deferring responsibility one echelon up. Ultimately, God's morality is just a decree by fiat. It's still subjective. It's subjective to God. I mean, what he decides is moral.
Isn't it worse than that, though, Thunder? Because the fiat is not actually really given by God. It's given by man interpreting what they perceive to be God's message.
Yeah. And yeah, that's no way to judge your morality.
Concordance.
William Lane Craig is like the PR firm hired to represent British Petroleum immediately after the oil spill. They're trying to come up with reasons why oil is good for birds' feathers, right? Or how the prevalence of waves at certain magnitude is decreased. They're doing anything they can. William Lane Craig is doing anything he can to make the atrocities more palatable. And if you offered me $1 million to do that job, to come up with some argument defending genocide, even if it's a historically fictional genocide, I don't think I would take it. So it says something about him personally that this is the profession that he's quite comfortable in doing.
Almighty.
Craig is not, he's a liar through and through. It's not just that he's creative with the truth. It's not that he bends. It's not that there's interpretation that is subjective. He's just a liar. His statement that there's no evidence in the Bible of innocents being killed is demonstrably false. If I had been there, if Dawkins had showed up, or if I could ever be his opponent and he would say something like that, I would just insist that everybody in that auditorium, anyone who ever listened to that debate, that day, read the book of Joshua from cover to cover. It's within covers of the larger book, whatever. Anyway.
It's one of my favorite books. If you're going to read just one book, read Joshua. It is a bloodbath. Aaron.
But wait. But the other thing, his pet issue of objective morality and the existence of a God is once again demonstrably false if you're going to take the Bible as a body of evidence. Okay, in Exodus chapter 32, verse 14. Okay, the context is Yahweh is angry at the Israelites, and he is going to wreak this horrible atrocity on them, maybe even wipe them out completely and start over again with another chosen people. Moses talks him out of doing this. And verse 14 says, "And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people." And there are many more uses of this term of phrase where Yahweh does something and regrets it.
The rainbow after the flood?
Yeah, the global flood. So I was thinking
Yes.
too.
He did it, and then he admitted that he was wrong.
Aaron.
I like William Lane Craig for exactly the same reason that I like Kenneth and Gloria Copeland and Benny Hinn and all of those other shysters. In trying to get people more aware of how dishonest religion is, it's very helpful to me to have people who are so overtly and inarguably dishonest as its loudest defenders. And I'm done.
And I would also advocate that in that I think the market that William Lane Craig primarily competes on is essentially preaching to the converted. No one finds the Kalam cosmological argument a good prima facie case for the existence of supernatural beings. However, Christians have already made up their mind that God exists, like to have someone like William Lane Craig who puts on the facade of being an academic and parades around exuding this arrogant smugness, espousing these arguments for the existence of God. That's basically his function. He is preaching to the converted.
So if Craig refuses, if Craig wants Dawkins to debate him, and Dawkins has said that he will not debate creationists, and Craig says he won't debate anyone with a PhD, he's blaming Dawkins because Dawkins already said, I'm not going to debate. So he's saying he's not going to debate anybody who doesn't have advanced degrees. So why don't I just come forward and hold an empty chair and hold a debate in William Lane Craig's honor, wherein I give him the same criticism. He said in advance that he wouldn't debate somebody without a PhD. I got a PhD here. This man is chicken to me, and I don't even have the degree.
I think you might have missed Almighty's comment at the beginning of this show that from now on, every Magic Sandwich show that we have will have an empty chair with William Lane Craig's name on it.
There we go. Thank you very much to everyone that was on the panel. Thank you to all the callers. Thank you to everyone that turned up. And we shall see you in 2 weeks' time, I hope. And now, normally, Tony would stop the show, but I've got to do it. I've got to figure out how I stop the show. Okay, thank you very much, anyone. Any feedback, do let us know.